This is VR Skater, a skateboarding sim made by a one-man dev team that looks to bring the fun of shredding to virtual reality. This releases August 4th, 2023 for the PSVR 2 headset for $35 US, with an early access version also available on Steam for $15 cheaper. Can VR do skateboarding justice? Does this capture the feel of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater but in VR? Just how bad am I at this game? Let's find out. Hello Shredheads, before we get to it, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and leave us a comment with your thoughts on this release. With that stuff out of the way, I'm Ryan for the VR Grid, now let's get to it. So here's a little backstory regarding my skateboarding history. I have none. Sure, I dabbled back in my youth like every young lad does, but I was terrible, so I moved on quite quickly to other ventures. Now, in regard to my gaming history, Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 were my jam, with the third installment keep me entertained, and the fourth losing me altogether. Despite my losing interest in the franchise, the nostalgia remains high with those games, so getting a sort of VR version of Pro Skater had me a little excited. There's no story or campaign to fret about, just grab your skateboard and get moving. Opening with a tutorial that teaches you the very basics of movement, which is a mixture of hand gestures, button, and trigger presses. Once you've mastered those controls, which admittedly took me some time, you're ready to tackle the main stages or take on the Academy, which teaches you the various tricks needed to get the points that unlock everything in the game. Most of these stages are locked until you conquer some of the challenges and modes in the previous stage, and given the requirements to get those high scores, I recommend tackling both the basic and medium Academy challenges to pump up your trick repertoire and unlock stuff quickly, not to mention that the extra practice will really help hone those maneuverability skills. You may be asking how a skateboarding game works in VR, and I gotta say, it works fairly well considering you don't have any virtual legs. You can choose to stand goofy or normal, left or right foot first, and with your dominant hand, you simply pump like you're cross-country skiing to pick up speed. To ollie, just press and release X with the rest of the buttons in combination with hand movements, allowing you to grab, flip, and twist your board to perform a variety of fancy moves. It's a good system, though admittedly, it's one I'm still struggling with as I record this, as there is just a lot to remember, and I found myself returning to the Academy quite often to remind myself how to perform a specific trick. Unfortunately, with hand movements required for more complicated actions, I found they didn't always register accurately, causing some unfortunate wipeouts and reduced scores. I don't think the controls are broken, and I can definitely see my skills improving as I get used to each trick. I just think the need to get as many tricks in here in combination with the gesture and button presses makes for a game that will take some time to master, and I expect many to probably tap out before they get all the gold medals available. Due to the control scheme in here, I found my first hour in the game to be quite frustrating, as it took me that long, if not a bit more, before everything started to click, though once it did, I began to have fun and enjoyed just how well crafted this can be. It's not perfect by any stretch, and pales in direct comparison to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, thanks to these smaller stages that don't allow for full free roaming due to their linear and restricted size. Stages are straight and narrow, and your board will only turn so much so you can't ever turn around, which makes sense as the level obstacles are clearly designed for you to only be going in one direction. There are multiple paths to choose, with some going up or down, so exploration is key in finding the best spots to chain together the most tricks. So while each stage sort of initially feels the same as the last, once I learned each stage's unique layout, I appreciated just how different they actually are. Some may have more rails or more jumps or even more crazier sections, which is good, as you'll be forced to play through them a lot. The name of the game here is Repetition, and with 8 stages currently available, 3 more are slated for future release, there isn't a ton of content in here. I think this is what will test players the most, as even though there are 5 different modes for each stage, they kind of all turn to the same thing. You can do the Street Challenge, which requires you to get the highest score you can without bailing too many times, Spot Challenge, which picks specific parts of the map for you to perform your best trick on, Best Trick tasks you with making your best trick out of 5 trick attempts, Sudden Death kills that run if you wipe out, or you can free roam any stage without the pressure of scoring. Seeing as how I was always trying to get the best score every time I played, it made some of those modes sort of redundant, but at the same time, the more I played, the better I got. I just wish there was more to do, be it finding collectibles or hidden areas, or something beyond just skating the same courses again and again and again. As you complete tasks, you'll accrue experience that lets you purchase different skins and trucks for your board, allowing for some personalization for your ride, and motivation to keep playing should you want those top tier unlockables. VR Skater looks alright, with each of the stages carrying with them unique themes and flair from a typical suburban neighborhood, school, construction zone, business area, dock, subway, industrial, and construction zones. They all look just fine with some dynamic lighting helping to add to the visual flair, though I found them to look and feel barren with nary a soul to be found save for yourself. There are also some flatter textures used and harder edges which make some objects look unnatural, but outside of those shortcomings is a game that looks decent with a variety of objects available to jump on, over, or slide upon. The verticality in some of the levels is appreciated, especially in the construction zone, with the game overall looking sharp and getting the job done, but not really impressing me in any way. Pop-in also shows up often, especially as each stage loads in, which is disappointing considering the scope of the game and the power of the PS5, and I can't help but feel like a little more could be done to optimize VR Skater to the Sony console. Still, what's here never offends, and considering the single developer behind this, it's easy to forgive many of the game's shortcomings in favor of the fun. Soundtracks have always been pivotal to sport games, with VR Skater delivering a solid alternative soundtrack, though one I wish had at least double the 8 tracks that it currently has. I enjoyed every song available, but listening to the same few songs for hours on end is madness, and given the lack of spatial audio in here, not that it would even be utilized anyways, I ended up turning the music off and wearing an earbud in one ear just so I wasn't skating in silence. Otherwise, sound effects are on point whether you're grinding on steel or wood or whatever, as are the impact sounds of your board just rolling along, landing or crashing, making for a simple but complete audio package. As far as haptics go, as far as I can tell, neither the Sense controllers nor headset rumble features are used, which I guess makes sense given that your hands aren't actually interacting with anything, but I would have appreciated a little headset shake whenever I took a tumble. As a total package, VR Skater gets way more right than wrong, and once I began to get somewhat comfortable with the control scheme, landing and chain together tricks, did I really start to enjoy the game. I think fans of past non-VR skateboarding games will get a lot of joy out of this as well, especially if you enjoy getting top scores and climbing leaderboards, an option that is coming soon, but not available at launch. However, if you are like me, I think fatigue will rear its ugly head sooner than later, as my drive to dive back in and do better is starting to wane. After playing for roughly 4 hours, I think I've seen everything VR Skater has to offer me at this point, and while I still have a lot of challenges to conquer, I've gotten everything I wanted out of this game, though I expect more than a few people to clock in many more hours than myself, which should hopefully justify that rather high asking price. I'm going to give VR Skater a 7 out of 10. It's a solid skateboarding sim, but I do think it needs more content sooner than later. If you enjoyed this review, hit that like button, and that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching.